Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Megan and I'm a professional writer, editor, and a published author. I like to start most of my videos with a disclaimer. I am not here to try to be a coach. I have no course to sell you. I'm here on YouTube purely to share my experiences with you and hopefully connect with other authors. I recently polled my audience asking what kind of content you would like to see more of, and these are the results as of right now. I'm probably going to try to continue covering all three of these things, but both in the poll and just in conversations with you on the side, a lot of you have said that you want to hear more about my process for writing my first fantasy novel. So I'm going to continue with that today, and then I'll have other videos in the future on other topics. I will always try to share stuff that I think will be valuable to you and not just talk about myself, to hear the sound of my own voice. So that's always my goal when I'm talking about my own writing. So hopefully you still find it relatable. A quick update, as of last week, I finished the first draft of my first ever fantasy novel. It came in at around 92,000 words and change. In this video, I want to quickly recap my process for writing it because I actually wrote this very quickly, quick for me anyway. Then I'm going to tell you what I learned as of finishing the first draft, and then I'll move on to how I plan to tackle revisions. First, my writing process. I started outlining this over the holidays, so end of 2024. I am very ambitious, and I thought that I could outline the entire thing in the 2 weeks that I took off for the holidays. Haha, joke's on me. That was never going to happen, and I had to learn to be okay with that. My initial plan was to outline the whole thing in painstaking detail from start to finish, and then sit down and write it start to finish. That also did not end up working out. I outlined it, started writing, and by the end of Act 1, I realized that the plot had already changed enough that what I had planned for Acts 2, 3, and 4, because I follow the 4-act structure, some of it didn't even apply anymore. So I adjusted my plan, and I said, okay, I'm going to work with a rough outline and tackle one act at a time. I intended to perfect Act 1, outline it, write it, go back to Act 2, outline and write that until it was perfect, and so on. That also backfired. This could have worked, but here's where I screwed up. I got lazy and I started rushing. I outlined Acts 1 and 2 enough so that writing them was mostly easy, but then I got a little too excited, rushed through the outlining for Acts 3 and 4, and those ended up too short and plot-wise kind of weak. I could sense it as I was writing. Oh, I can't talk. But I told myself, stop trying to be perfect, just get the story out. So I did. All in all, outlining and writing this very rough first draft took me about 3 months. If you watched any of my videos, you know that for me, this is great. I spend historically like 2+ years on a book from start to finish, but I want this to be my career and I want to be traditionally published. And I realize that I will greatly increase my chances of finding success, as I define it, if I can write more than one book every 2 years. I set a very ambitious goal for myself to have this book done this year. And based on my progress so far, I'm planning to have it done within the next, 2 to 3 months. God, I hope I don't regret saying that, but that's my plan. I am notorious for setting unrealistic goals. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to try. Overall, I'm happy with how it's gone so far, and I learned a lot. Okay, so that was my general process for writing my fantasy novel. Next, I'm going to tell you what I learned from all of this and what I will do differently with the next book I write, because I do plan to make this a series. For book 2, what I'm thinking might work for me, instead of attempting to outline all the details from the word go, I think I will outline from a high level. So like the main points in a story arc, the inciting incident, pinch points, midpoint, climax, stuff like that, so that I at least know what big things I need to be working toward. Beyond that, I still found it helpful to look at one act at a time. So I think my next step will be to start with Act 1, really flesh that out, maybe flesh out Act 2 a little more, and then write Act 1. So it's kind of a less extreme version of what I had intended to do with this first book. What I learned does not work for me is thinking I can define every single detail from start to finish before I start writing, because so much of this book came to me while I was writing. All right, third, how do I plan to tackle revisions? I'm scared. This is making me sweat a little bit, I'll be honest. Even though I edit for a living, this is a different type of editing. And furthermore, I feel like writing a book, you get so stuck in what you wrote that it's hard to see any other possibilities. At least that's how I often feel. It gets really hard for me to kind of think outside the box. To hopefully help with this, I've committed from stepping away from my manuscript for 1 whole week. We'll see if I make it. I need to come back with fresh or fresher eyes. So that means that, 1 week will take me to probably around the time that I post this video. It will have been 1 week since I finished that first draft. When I get back to it, my plan is to edit in layers, and here's what I mean. My first round of edits, I think I'm going to focus on ensuring that it has all the scenes it needs and all the plot points. Next round, maybe I'll focus on developing character arcs and so on. And I'm going to give myself some flexibility here because I feel like there will be overlap. Like in adding scenes, I might very well also be developing a character arc in the process. It's in my nature to try to plan everything, and I know now that that doesn't work, but I also don't want to attempt to tackle everything in one go. It's too much. So that's why I want to do it in phases, to try to separate it a bit so I can focus on 1 or 2 things at a time. Eventually, I want to send this to maybe 2 beta readers, people I really trust, and I do plan to hire a developmental editor. And this is kind of another reason why I didn't want to spend, a year or 2 years working on this book. What always ends up happening is that because I work on a book for so long and I read it so many times, I get sick of looking at it and I don't want to edit it anymore, and I become almost resentful of it. So that's one reason why I gave myself a tighter deadline for this first draft. And as I was writing, I didn't obsessively reread and revise what I wrote the last time because I know I will get hung up on it. So my goal for the draft was to just write it, get the first draft down on paper, take a break, and then go into the first phase of revisions and do the revisions in layers. Anyway, I want to be super efficient with this so that by the time I get feedback from beta readers and an editor, I'm not like, oh my God, I can't stand to look at this anymore, which is what happened. It's happened every time in the past. If I were to take a step back, I think what I've gotten most out of this experience so far, writing my first fantasy, is finding a balance between plotting and planning and preparing, but leaving room for knowing that things will change. I love the idea of outlining a novel in again, like painstaking, mind-numbing detail. I love the idea of that because it makes things so much smoother for me when I sit down to write. That's just how I feel. I know some people would hate this process. That's what works for me. But yeah, it definitely, at least not at this stage, it's not feasible to do that for all 4 acts. Every book I've written, I've learned so much about the process that works best for me. And I think that's, even though I've written so many books at this point and I still haven't had any success in terms of getting an agent, I've learned so much. And I know that's going to make all of my writing in the future stronger. So none of this was a loss. I don't consider it a loss that the initial plan for writing this book didn't pan out the way I thought. It wasn't a loss or a setback or a fail because I learned from it and I grew from it, and it's going to make me better. As always, everything I shared in this video is just what works or doesn't work for me. You might have your own process and it might work great. You might try some of what I said and love it or hate it. Do whatever helps you write your best book. For me, I think I've figured out some of those details, but a lot of this is a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. Writing a book is not easy, and I'm realizing more and more every time I think I have all the information I need to do this correctly, I uncover like 40 things I need to work on. But again, I consider that progress. When you find something that you realize you're not doing that well or that you could do way better, that's a win. You should celebrate that because you've just found a way to make yourself an even better writer. And when is that? That's never a bad thing. That's always good news. Thanks so much for being here. I'm excited to keep sharing updates on this book. As I'm recording this, I'm still in the middle of that week-long break that I'm forcing myself to stick to, even though I really don't want to. I really want to be writing right now, but I'm gonna do what I say I'm gonna do. In a couple of days, I'll get back to the manuscript. I'll look at it for the first time in a week, which I never leave my writing that long. That's probably a problem. And yeah, I'll have another video coming up probably within the next couple weeks about what revisions are looking like, problems that I found in the manuscript, plot holes, anything I can find that I know can be better. I will work into one of these videos and share it with you. That's all for today. Thanks so much. Drop me a comment to say hello. Support my channel by giving this video a thumbs up. I don't ask for much, but I do ask for your engagement if you'd be willing to give it to me. And I'll see you next time. Bye.